think the first thing to say about the story of Adam and Eve is it's one of innumerable origin stories. It happens to be the most celebrated, the most famous and powerful origin story in our culture, central to Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. But it's only one of many, many origin stories. It seems to be something that our species does. And as far as we know, other species don't do it. I don't think that chimpanzees ask questions about the origin of chimpanzees or bottlenose dolphins and sperm whales. But we do ask, where did we come from? What were the first ones of our species? And this is it appears to be a universal phenomenon in culture to ask about origins. And so this is a crucially significant version of the kind of story that is generated. And we might ask why. Why do we want to know? Why don't other creatures want to know? Well, I think there are a number of different explanations. One is our insatiable curiosity, including something like scientific curiosity. Another is our uneasiness, perhaps, about ourselves and the course of our existence. Why is it so hard? Why do we have to labor? Why do weeds grow in the fields and we have to clear them out in order to get food from the ground? Why can't we just get everything we need naturally? Why do women scream in pain when they give birth to offspring, a totally natural event that is the part of the replication of the species? Why are men so miserable to women? And why do they put up with it? And maybe above all, why do we die? So the story addresses in an incredibly powerful, though difficult way, but in very, very tight compass, it addresses those questions and more in a way that human beings appear to want and need, as a way of orienting themselves in the world, as a way of understanding their fate. The fact that the first humans are in a garden where they're told that they can eat of any tree that they want. They're vegetarians. They can eat of any tree in the garden except for one, which they're prohibited from eating. And it happens that the one tree that they're prohibited from eating is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And it was noticed a very long time ago, that is to say several thousand years ago, that it's a problem to be prohibited from eating of the tree that will enable you to distinguish between good and evil, since distinguishing between good and evil is presumably what enables you to observe the prohibition in the first place. So that problem bothered people right away, or at least, maybe not right away, but at least 2,000 years ago. And then we have various other problems. They are warned that they will die if they violate the prohibition. He doesn't explain, unfortunately, what that means. And since there had been, as far as we know, no death in the world up to that point, it must have been rather perplexing. I sometimes think of Adam hearing this for the first time and thinking, I don't really know what he means, but next time I talk to him, I'll ask him, what do you mean by die? But in any case, we don't get any explanation given to the first humans as to what it is they're being told to beware. And in fact, when they encounter the talking snake, when the woman encounters the talking snake says, no, you're not going to die. You'll become like a god. He denies that the punishment will be death. And you could say that immediately after the man and woman eat, they don't die. So they keep going on. This is a problem that actually puzzled many early commentators. Why don't they die immediately, since they were warned that they would die? It's a perfect instance of something that I think should puzzle us and interest us. Why is it that when we look around, or when we look at the polls that are conducted of our own fellow citizens, men and women in the United States, but more broadly in the world, so many people profess to believe in the literal truth of this literally unbelievable story? And we could shrug and say it's religious dogma. We could say it's stupidity or gullibility, but I'm not inclined to say any of those things. I think that this is an incredibly powerful story. It's very good to think with. I think it's extremely naive to believe that any of us can live without narrative, without stories, without myths. We don't. Even those people who think that they're not living with myths, maybe Spock on Star Trek, but people don't live lives like that. We need ways of orienting ourselves in the world. And this is one of the great instances in the history of our civilization, an instance of very complex kind with good sides and bad sides of people orienting themselves in the world. I'm not the least bit surprised that millions of people in our world, despite the evidence of genetics, despite the evidence of geology, nonetheless cling to a belief in this story. When I am reading or looking at an image or a painting or listening to music, I try to make myself as alert as possible to what I don't get, what seems to me not to be working or to puzzle me or not to make sense. And sometimes it actually just doesn't make sense. All right, we leave it at that. But actually, I think often the thing that seems incomprehensible is the place you want to start digging, not the thing you want to let your eyes slide over and go on to the part that looks super familiar and easy. So for myself, and I encourage, since I'm a teacher, I encourage my students to be alert to the stuff that doesn't fit, that looks weird, and to think about why it looks weird and to pay some attention to that. Because our temptation as readers and as lookers, listeners, our temptation is just to seize like flailing in the ocean, to seize on what we are familiar with already. But then that tends to give you what you already know. I'm interested in what we don't know.